The views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or Webster Rockhill Ministries, its management, or other hosts or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented by KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Hey, it's In Tune with Arnold Stricker and Ellie Wharton. Welcome to our show today.
Welcome, welcome. And this is our post 4th of July show, right?
So we're shooting off whatever remaining fireworks that we have.
That's right. Even though it may just be our mouth.
Wow, look at that one.
Colorful. Loud.
That was a big bang.
That was a big bang. That's right.
We
That's
were
right.
just talking off the air about how things are relative as it relates to the weather, and how some people whine when it's 70 degrees up in the great Northwest, and they think it's a heat wave.
Yes, because I have actually been in Seattle when it hit 70, and even it was a banner headline, the heat wave. And I'm like, heat wave? I'm going to the store and find a jacket. What the heck?
Well, and they went to the lake.
And they went to the lake. Yes, everybody in droves. And they left work at noon. And nobody went back to work.
Because they don't have any air conditioning up there.
That's right. But I was like so shocked because I was up there for a conference and they were talking about the heat wave. And then all of a sudden, the streets were like just filled with people. And I said to someone who lived up there, I said, well, don't these people work? And they were like, no, everybody took off. Everybody took off of work at noon because of the heat wave so that they could go to the lake. I was like, okay.
Well, we don't have that problem here.
No, we kind of wish this week it had been 70 degrees.
We just endure it one way or the other.
Was it hot on 4th of July or what?
Oh, man, that was a real firecracker.
Yeah, that was a very hot day. And, we had a lot of pushback in many cases because there were a lot of political statements being made during the parade. And we did talk about that on the morning show. We had Kamara and Angela and Davo talking about that. And a lot of people wrote in or text in and shared their comments about the thoughts of how many politically, flagrant kind of parade floats and groups there were. It was a lot.
There was a lot, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in the second hour. Our text number, if you want to text us, is 314-736-4510, 736-4510. But this first hour, we have David Gorden, who's in studio to talk to us about his opening at Urb Arts. And for those of you that don't know about Urb Arts is located up by one of the greatest old soda fountain places in the world.
The greatest soda fountain place in the world.
They have the greatest BLT sandwiches. They have a situation where if you drink, 5 malts, they're all free. If you do that within the span of 30 minutes, I believe it is.
Well, they should make it free because that way it's that 30 minutes that they need to get the ambulance there for you.
And it's great chocolate around Easter time where they pour chocolate into old molds and the line runs out the door. And the place I'm talking about is...
Crown Candy?
Crown Candy.
Of course, Crown Candy.
Yeah, Urb Arts is up by Crown Candy. And
I know where you are. Mm-hmm. I have been in there. As a matter of fact, I was there with my friend Chris Mullen, who has a show here, shameless plug for Chris, and she does Studio 111. And we came there one time because there were a group of jazz musicians that were having a rent party. And
a rent party.
Yeah, man. And let me tell you, and they were jamming. It was on a Sunday afternoon. We were jamming. They raised enough money for the rent.
There you go.
I was happy to contribute.
Well, shoot.
That's the way to go.
Maybe I need to do that.
Yeah. David was like, rent party?
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
David Gordon's a graphic novelist and comic artist. Matter of fact, he also is an IP creation specialist. He knows that today's world has become predicated on people's attention being captured by engaging stories and eye-catching visuals and has over 2 decades of experience creating and applying his skills in character creation, sequential art, storyboarding, script writing, and concept creation. This year, earlier, he released his original graphic novel, Kwame Hightower, and The Man with No Name. That's a great one.
That's a good one.
And the book follows the adventures of a 12-year-old boy who inadvertently becomes the King of England after drawing Excalibur from the sacred stone. David is currently promoting the book and looking to expand his character's reach into such areas as vinyl toys, T-shirts, animation, and more. Welcome, David, to In Tune.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Hey, you've got this show at Urb Arts, and it opens tonight, and it will be on until the end of the month, I think the 29th. Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about the show and what people will see when they go to Urb Arts.
Well, the show's called Super Black, and the basic premise is centered around myself and Lorenzo Lizano, friend, mentor, fellow artist I've worked with for a very long time. I'll just leave it at that. And basically, we have a lot of experience in the comic book industry, creating comics, creating art in the St. Louis area, as it were. And the show basically is just kind of just a display of our comic book art, our what inspires us, our characters. You're going to see his original creation, Scarab. So definitely be looking out for that. There's going to be a lot of his stuff. Also, he's got another original creation, the Facilitators. He's definitely going to be showing those off. Myself, of course, you're going to see a ton of Kwame Hightower stuff because that's all I've been working on for the past year. And also, you're going to see some preview artwork for another series that I'm going to be working on moving forward, Quantum University, which I hope to kind of talk with you guys about too.
Yeah. Now, this is your first actual art show, right?
Yes, it is. It's funny. Like I said, we've been in the city county doing creative work for like ever. Not, it's long when you drop the 4 off of it, so it's just ever. So we've done comic book conventions, we've done expos and all kinds of stuff, but we've never actually had an art show where we get to just display our work.
And that ought to be really exciting because it's a totally different kind of thing for you guys.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience. Lorenzo and I were both kind of really new to it, as it were. There are artists in the city. They're like, it's an art exhibit. You do this, you do this, you do this, and I'm like, well, I've never done it before because I've never just displayed the artwork. We've always been kind of in the retail convention space.
Right. Now, this is going to be tonight at Urb Arts where it premieres, and that's at 2600 North 14th Street. Mm-hmm. From 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. is the reception, but this whole exhibit goes all the way through July 29th. Now, tell us, how did you get involved with art and graphic arts and comics? Where did that all begin? Because you're a local product. You're a Hazelwood East grad, and was art something you did as you were going up through school, or tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I know it was a dark and stormy night, and
Dark and stormy night.
No, seriously. I born here in St. Louis, lived in Jennings for a number of years before moving into further out into the county, into North County, and going to Hazelwood East where I graduated. From an early age, I've always wanted to tell stories. I always liked to draw. I was an avid cartoon watcher, and science fiction and monster movies were that was it. I always made the joke while all my other friends were idolizing Scarface and Say Hello to My Little Friend. My thing was, Luke, I'm your father. That was my thing. I was like, that beats that, but they didn't see it that way. So moving forward, but that's where it grew from, and then of course got into reading old Archie comics at first, then moved on to like Marvel comics, X-Men, Avengers.
Yeah.
And then when I finally got out of high school, expanded into independent comics as well as DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, everybody. I had always dreamed of either working for Marvel or doing my own thing, and as I grew, I became more and more enamored with doing my own thing, creating my own characters, creating my own universe. Got with a bunch of guys that were kind of like-minded, and we kind of have been working together for years and years and years. Started out working at an airbrush shop, well, actually a screen printer with some great airbrush artists. We were a crew called Air Assault, led by one of my old friends, Charles Chuck Jenkins and Raymond DeBerry III. Rest in peace, Ray. Grew into another group of artists, Mach 1, which was more dedicated to creating comic books. And then from there, began doing just graphic designs in the city during the great hip-hop explosion of the early 2000s. Moved to Atlanta for a while. Worked in Atlanta, came back in 2013 to work for Lionforge Comics. And it's kind of been on and popping since.
Now, is that a local group?
Lionforge is actually a local publisher. They've got about 100 or so books out. I was there at the ground stage for the most part, and now I work within their business division, and we actually do comics for local clientele, like the Jennings School District, St. Louis Cardinals. We've done animation and comics for all a whole host of people. So you'll actually see a lot of our work, especially bubbling up here and there all over the city.
Very cool. Now where do people go to buy comics? Because, Ellie, it's been a long time since I bought a comic book. I remember you used to go down to the drugstore, or we used to call it the dime store at the time, and I'd pick up a Superman or I'd pick up a Batman or something like that and would read that. And it's been a long time. So where do I go to buy comics if I want to buy comics that you've done?
Oh, okay. Well, if just in general, if you want to buy comics and, if you want to buy some Lionforge stuff because they're from St. Louis and you want to support local, you can go to local stores like Star Clipper, the Wizard's Wagon over in U City. It's the fantasy shops, of course. There's just so many. My man Steve Falcon, he has a store over in I can't. I just had a brain for it. Over.
Did he just say that on live radio?
I think I did.
It was a cart pulling his brain.
Yeah, it was a cart pulling my brain.
That's right, a cart. You got it.
My old brain. But there's a number of places, and then my book specifically, as an independent creator, it's a little bit harder to get into the stores because they have to pay rent, and independent creators don't help them pay rent. Marvel and DC does. So,
Gotcha.
But there are plenty of other outlets. So right now, the book is available exclusively. My book is available exclusively on Amazon, and at some point, it will be available on Comixology digitally as well.
Okay, now you want to talk about the book a little bit and how you come up with characters. I know you in what you were saying earlier, you watched a lot of different kinds of movies and productions and read a lot of different kind of comics. So as you're kind of thinking about doing your own thing, are you creating these in your head, and are you creating the storylines in your head? Because I always kind of thought that, one guy created the story and another guy did the artwork, or maybe one guy did both, which is, I think, a rarity anymore. How does it work for you?
Well, comics is specialized, and like you said before, it is normally one guy writes, one guy draws, one guy does the inking, one guy does the lettering. In my case, my life experiences, I've actually been able to do everything as far as writing, the drawing, the inking, and even the lettering, and even the coloring. So I've kind of had experience in everything. So with this book, my intention was to create a property that was accessible to a younger audience, starting at 8 years old and up. You want to have, you want to be able to have it accessible to families, everybody enjoy themselves. So I wanted to do that, but I wanted to really call back to those adventures, those action series that I grew up with and that I thought really worked. So in the case of Kwame Hightower, I came up with the idea back in 2001, and it was a totally different concept from what it originally was. And actually, the original concept didn't quite work. But what really happened was I had conceived a storyline, and I said, wait a minute, this storyline is actually what the concept should be. So I started wrapping the entire narrative around the storyline of him actually pulling Excalibur from the stone, becoming the king of England, and what would that entail and what would that bring to a 12-year-old kid who just wants to go back home to St. Louis. He doesn't like living there to begin with.
Very interesting.
So that's pretty much how it came about.
So do you kind of plot it out and chart it out on a storyboard and then maybe put character little drawings, or I'm trying to think inside your head how you get to, about the process, because when I go to read a comic and I see each separate segment on a page, and it's like and the story flows and the artwork flows with it, that seems to me really complicated.
It is. The thing is my thought process is pretty much chaos. What I do try to do to keep some semblance of organization, not much, but some, is at least write out a general outline of things that I would like to see. Try to figure out the beginning, try to figure out what mostly will happen in the middle, and try to at least think what I'm going to have for the ending. And then I'll actually get into the actual creation process, and for the most part, all of that goes out the window, because when you're in it, you're kind of in it, and you're actually, you just kind of mold yourself to, okay, you'll see something, and then, okay, well, I thought I was going to go to here, but this seems like a better option, so let's go here.
And you really probably, once you start, you don't like to be interrupted. You're going, so how long is this, like 12, 16 hours at a time, 8 hours at a time?
Well, I was actually working the book while I'm working my 9-to-5 job, so I would actually come home, and you're looking at probably another 6 or 7 hours of work.
Wow.
Just on the art side during the daytime, and then or during the weekdays, and then on the weekends. Well, I didn't have weekends because I would work pretty much 24, 12, 14 hours, sleep, and work again on Sunday to try and get the book done. And it really just, again, it's just kind of like a molded process. You just kind of go with the flow. You kind of figure things out. Sometimes I'd have to take a step back and really rethink some ideas. If you come to the show, you're actually going to see some lost pages, pages that were completely done, drawn out, and I thought that was it. And then 2 weeks later, I changed my mind. And so what was originally drawn is not in the book. Some pages are brand new, were added right when I thought I had finished the book. But it's all kind of this growing process of putting together this proper narrative.
Now, when I look at this and I'm going through, reminds me of watching Batman when I was a kid, where you've got Bakam and Ga and Kaboom, Wakum, and all these. It really takes me back to when I was a kid and watched. Of course, that wasn't a comic book. It was essentially a comic book that was personified by Adam West and Burt Ward as, how about that one, as a blast to the past, Batman and Robin. But I see these, and so when you do these, they're in black and white. The covers are actually in color. Do you do some color work all the way through on some, or are these done in like pen and ink, or how are they done?
Well, it's pen and ink on Bristol board, and then you have a lot of the young artists. They're just pure digital now. They draw it digitally in the computer, and then they add the color and all of that stuff. I'm still an old guy, but to that effect, I did use some Photoshop to make corrections and things like that. And most comics, depending on who's publishing them, will be in color. But because of printing constraints with where I went with Amazon, it was better to do the book in black and white.
Very cool. So that's a whole nother process about getting a book published, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, where do you start with that?
It's a lot of different ways. I went through the Amazon's Create Space program, because basically it's no money up front. It's print on demand, so you don't have to carry inventory at all. No warehousing costs or anything like that. You order a book, it comes straight to your house. They print it right then and there. And what I found out is that they kind of print a little backlog just to have,
right?
So they can kind of send them out. But then after a while, that goes down as the orders come through, and they have to print up some more.
So this is a big, it says on the back, a big fat hero graphic novel. Mm-hmm. And is that big fat hero, is that a like a publishing logo for you, or?
It's a bit of a publishing logo. It's more of a collective of just guys that are really into geek culture, comics, video games, TV shows, movies. We do social media stuff. We had podcasts. We need to get back on it. It's just a whole lot of things collected into one. But it all surrounds being a black geek and being in that geek culture, which is kind of really bubbling up and popping right now.
Yeah, because I read the back here, it says, for 12-year-old Kwame Hightower, a trip to Buckingham Palace becomes a life-changing experience when he pulls the legendary sword Excalibur from the sacred stone, making him the King of England. Little does he know that becoming king is only the beginning of his adventure, as Kwame is plunged into a world of fantastic science, ancient races, and exotic lands, backed up by clandestine roundtable division of MI6. We got, I love it. Kwame's first order of business as king is searching for and capturing the mysterious man with no name, a nameless prison escapee whose plans lead directly to Kwame drawing Excalibur. Yet there is more going on than meets the eye, and Kwame must come to grips with his role and powers in time to unravel a deadly conspiracy, one that threatens the fate of two worlds.
My goodness, boy, does that sound exciting.
Man, I tell you what, I want to take this home and read this book, David.
And you know, I did just set up a post on our Facebook page, David, just so that you know. I set up a post for your event tonight.
Okay.
And it's actually set it up like it's an event so that people can then, click on that they're interested. But I told them to watch, to listen right now. I took a copy of your cover page there, your cover, and posted it while you were talking. So hopefully that will help to promote. And we do have very responsive listeners. So I think they'll find this to be really keen.
Well, I think they'll really enjoy the show. I know they'll love the book. So get the book. But
and it's a nice looking book. The cover is just great.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, people can see it right now on our Radio 63119 Facebook page.
Or they can order it from Amazon. Mm-hmm. It's $12.99, and it's Kwame Hightower and the Man with No Name by David Gorden, and it's Gorden. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and fill us in about what you were saying about tonight, then, David.
Yeah, tonight it's going to be a great show. We're going to have a DJ spinning. We're going to have it's a family atmosphere, so if you have the kids, bring them down. There will be adult beverages, a little wine, a little stuff. A little
some adult beverages.
So just so you know, in case little Timmy grabs something, put that down. But so we don't want anybody to get in trouble by anything. But we definitely want everybody to come out. We want as many people to come out as possible. This is St. Louis, so we really want everybody to enjoy themselves, and then we're going to have I believe there's a poetry slam at 8:00 that's going to start. And I've got a couple of my friends who are poets that are going to be doing their thing. What's up, 16 Bars? I'm looking for you, waiting on you to show up. So definitely, I think it's going to be a really good night all the way around.
Well, that sounds great. Now, hang around. We're coming up to a break because I have a few more questions. But don't forget, this is tonight at Urb Arts. It's the premiere and exhibit of the comic works of Lorenzo Lizano and David Gorden. It's a reception from 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. at Urb Arts, which is 2600 North 14th Street. If you're not familiar with that area, you're surely familiar with Crown Candy. It's almost across the street from Crown Candy.
Right down the street.
Right down the street, yeah. Really a great thing to get out to see, and that's an interesting environment, Urb Arts, and we want to talk about that a little bit when we come back from break too.
Yeah.
But Ellie, cool book.
Very cool. I mean, and it even has pictures.
My kind of book.
Lots and lots of pictures, as a matter of fact. Oh, that's right. It's a comic book.
Duh.
Yeah, it's got pictures, and then it's got a few words that go along with it. But the pictures are so great, I think you could actually make up your own story as you go along.
And
which would be a lot of fun.
That's the beauty that I really like about comic books, that you can follow kind of along with the story just by the pictures.
Yeah, and these are great.
Or you can read. Yeah, these are really, really wonderful. You've done a wonderful job here, David.
Thank you.
Well, listen, this is Arnold Stricker of In Tune. You're listening to KWRH LP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri. We'll be right back. Hey, you're welcome back to In Tune. This is Arnold Stricker with
Ellie Wharton.
Hey, Ellie, I want to give a shout out to Ralph and Suzanne Nasland.
Okay, Ralph and Suzanne, shout out.
Shout out. Thanks for listening.
We like it when we know people are listening, don't we?
Absolutely.
Besides Amy and Mari.
Hey, 736-4510 if you have a question for David. That's our in-studio text number. I want to give you a little bit more information about Urb Arts, founded in 2001. The mission was to create platforms and platform creatives for youth and community development. And the animating idea behind Urban Arts Artist Alliance was the concept of social arts, where poets, writers, actors, musicians, and visual artists would create art that reflect the conditions and possibilities of their communities. This kind of art is not apolitical. It challenges, disrupts, and tells truth about society from the artist's perspective. That's one thing I really like about art, and even about music, is that, we had this conversation earlier, David, several weeks ago. Does art imitate reality, or reality imitate art? And sometimes you wonder if it's cyclical or in a circle. Which is the chicken or the egg?
You know what? I've always felt that it goes both ways. It's kind of like a tide. It rolls in, rolls out. Sometimes, well, think about it like this. Look at the Star Trek paradox. If you look at the original show, they predicted so many things, but maybe the look wasn't exactly the same.
Right.
They definitely predicted a lot of things that were going to come about, and that's partly because they were in tune with people that were doing research and things like that. And they say, well, hey, 20 years from now, this might happen, or 100 years from now. So they're like, okay, well, let's put it in there. So that was life and art kind of imitating each other at the same time.
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting how Star Trek has was very forward thinking in the communication devices and the medical. They've got like a tablet where they're taking scientific information for it. Very, very, very forward thinking on that.
Well, this morning I was having a conversation with my little Google Donut thing. So it's my little Google Home. What's the temperature going to be like?
And keep in mind that we were seeing these types of technological advances as far back as the Jetsons.
Yeah. The Jetsons are another one.
Right.
They were way ahead of their time. I mean, they had artificial intelligence working in their home. Remember, they had a robot,
right,
that was working in their home. And then let's not forget, of course, all of the things that we saw, with the early writings that had, like freeways, transit systems that ran on rails, things like that. Though at the time, we were looking at them going, nobody's ever going to do that. Or what was it? Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy had a watch.
Right.
And now today, we've got watches
that will talk to you.
That's right.
It's your phone if you want.
I remember we thought how cool Dick Tracy was, and he had that watch that he could talk to.
And I think back to H.G. Wells.
Exactly.
And his, going to the moon and beneath the sea and all those kinds of things. Just incredible thought process.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, so you look back on all of that and you think, well, where did those ideas come from? And how could they have seen that far in the future? We can't even think,
Maybe they were visited by...
That's right, the ones who brought us Teflon.
Extraterrestrials.
Aliens.
Remember Teflon? We didn't have Teflon until until Roswell.
Was that something that
crashed in '54?
That's right. Then all of a sudden
a Teflon.
We had Teflon.
UFO?
How do you think they were cooking their food?
Reverse engineering.
M.K. Stallings is the organizer and founder of Urb Arts. And matter of fact, he contributes to the Webster Kirkwood Times on an occasion.
Really? Well, we're going to have him on the air.
Yeah. So, and we were talking off air about how, David, you got involved in mentoring and who was helping you out, and you basically said there wasn't anybody. And I was mentioning how important I think it's great that all kids, but especially kids of color, can see that here's someone who's been successful in the industry and is an artist. You are an artist. You're not a comic book artist. Kind of like the Norman Rockwell, where people said, "Oh, you're an illustrator. You're not really an artist." No, he was an artist.
No, he was. Yeah,
and he just happened to have his stuff as labeled as illustrations. But you're not a comic book artist. You are an artist. And then when you write the story with it, so how did you go about organizing all this, like we talked off air, when you went to conventions and there wasn't anybody there, and now what you are doing with some other people to help mentor youth in this area?
Well, it was a real learning experience back in those days. And don't get it wrong, it's not bitterness or anything. It's just we were too far apart. There was no internet. You only met these people maybe once a year if you saw them. So heaven forbid somebody got sick and they couldn't be at a show the next year. So it's very hard to kind of build those relationships and get that type of information from somebody. But now, as we've progressed, we've got this internet and we're all so connected now, and we know better. We know a lot more now, so we know that it's not good to hold that information in. It's better to give it away, to spread it out. So one of the things that Lorenzo and I, and actually all of the guys that are in our crew, are really big on is just really teaching kids not only how to draw really pretty pictures, which is great, but also how to be a professional in the industry and how to treat this, especially if you're going to be an independent artist, how to treat it as an actual job and not just something that you're playing at. So that means being on time to the convention, which is being on time to work, right? Mm-hmm. How to set up your table so that it's inviting. Mm-hmm. How to be outgoing when most artists are introverts. You know, they don't want to talk, but you got to talk. So you need to learn how to do those things. Right. And that's something, and even with Lion Forge, the company that we work for, that's something that everybody is really in tune with. So that's going to be something, a push moving forward, that's going to get bigger and better. And actually, we're hoping that we can get as many artists on board and kind of get them that learning, that training, and get them out of their shell so they can become better and more independent and more focused.
So do you go out to schools? Do you have like comic book camp or something like that where kids come in and you guys talk to them and help them with their comic book ideas or their art ideas or their storyline ideas, things like that?
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. One of the programs that I started specifically is that we are doing a comics and animation class at the Jennings School District. That we'll be going into our third full school year.
And that's with Art McCoy. Get you guys involved? Yeah,
yes.
I know Art.
Oh, yeah.
Great guy.
Oh, man. That's the man.
Yes, it is. That's exactly right.
He's the man. And one of the things is that it's cool to have a superintendent school administrator that's super hands-on. So it turn around sometimes, Dr. McCoy, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just watching you, brother. Just seeing what you're doing. I really am proud of you. Yeah, you keep going. It's like, okay, all right. That's what's up. So the program with Dr. McCoy, we've been working it for 2 years now. This is our third year, going on the third year, and we're really getting
a groove now.
Getting into a groove now. We really kind of know how to get the kids involved, get them going. We've had some days where it's like a real creative studio, just that creative, all the energy, and we're really teaching and they're really creating. And the only thing, we don't really try to tell them what to do so much as we try to guide them towards whatever their thought process is. If they want to do a book or create something about a pretty princess, okay, well, what's the pathway that you want to take? Mm-hmm. And we just try to make sure that they stay on point with that pathway, and so on and so forth. So it's really been good. We really got a lot of great talented kids over in Jennings. We're looking to expand the program at some point, so that's going to be great. at the Urb Arts Gallery, we're going to be doing a workshop for the next 3 weeks this month, working with a group of kids, just teaching them how to create a comic strip. So that's going to be fun.
And when does that occur at Urb Arts?
That's the next 3 Saturdays, the 7th, 14th, and the 21st. And I think we already got a set group of kids that are going to be coming in, and we're just going to rip and have fun and show them how to create and tell a story and all of those great things like that. So that's really kind of been our other mission besides creating good comics and entertainment and really telling just great fun stories.
Oh yeah. Now the group when you're working at Jennings, is that during the school year? Is that in the summertime, or when is that?
No, that's during the school year. That's really the great thing. We've actually one of our kids, first year kids, she got a scholarship. What's it, Font Bond? Mm-hmm. I think it's full ride Font Bond art scholarship. Great artist. She's a great artist.
Very cool.
We have a couple more. One of the young ladies is 10th grader going into 11th grade. She's going to come out, and hopefully we can get her into somebody's animation program. She's
Dynamite.
Great. Yeah, she's dynamite, and her friend also just dynamite artists, dynamite animators. So we have a lot of great things, a lot of great talent, and I'm more than positive that it's not just the Jennings area, it's all over St. Louis. So we're really trying to expand out and just teach these kids what it is to be a visual storyteller and what does it actually mean.
You know what, Ellie, what I've found in listening to David about that is confirmed some other things I've heard from other people, is that kids are talented in a variety of things, but one of the most important things that they need is encouragement and mentorship to develop that talent and to hone that talent and to give them a focus and confidence so that when they get out of high school or they get out of college, that they really feel confident in their abilities to produce some of the things that their talents can allow them to produce.
And also in this area, the Webster Arts Committee, I'm on that board. They're the ones that put on Plein Air, and they put on the Webster Arts Fair every year. There's so many opportunities, and there are people there that are willing to help and volunteer. We also have a studio and an exhibition hall up there on Eden Seminary's campus. I see a lot of opportunities for being able to exhibit this type of art and really to get a great following to come in and view it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I actually I put out a tweet some months ago. I said I wish that America treated art the way they treat sports. And what I mean by that is that I'm a big sports fan, so I do a lot of equating art to sports, and it actually is an apples to apples equation because it's talent based. You have the cream always the more you practice, the better you get, and there are some kids that are just more talented than others, but there are some kids that just better work ethic, right? Same thing with athletes, right? So it's all about training, getting ready, moving on to the next level, moving on. The difference with art as opposed to athletics is that athletics, there's a cap. After a while, knees start to creak and
an age cap.
Or
a physical ability cap.
Yeah. Whereas with art, you can keep expanding and growing as you age. So what I would love to see, especially in the St. Louis area, is that we actually take a two-pronged attack. We know we can go all in with our athletes, which we need to. If kids got athletic skill, he needs to be in sports. But if a kid's got artistic skill, that kid needs to be. We need to be all in with that kid as well,
as much as we are with athletics. Yeah, and it's the same thing like with music. I've found that it's any of the arts, like dance, same kind of deal.
Yeah,
I when you mentioned that about working hard and about your talent, it reminded me, because I captured this picture. I was going to read the caption. It's in a basketball camp, and it says, "This basketball camp teaches more than just moves." And on the wall, there's this phrase, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard."
That's true.
And it reminded me about that some people have a really natural gifted talent, whether it's athletics or art or music or dance, but when you really work hard and you're honing that talent, you can really surpass people who are just relying on their God-given talent to do something like that.
Yeah, you definitely can, and that's always kind of the balance. There's some people that are just so talented that they know they can coast, but if they coast too much, some guy come run right past you. So you don't want to do that. So we definitely want people to understand how to work their talents, how to hone their talents, how to utilize it to effect. But sometimes, we do understand we're all human. You're gonna rein it in sometimes. So when do you want to do that, and why would you want to do that? So you definitely want to be a little bit more cerebral with it than just I'm just going to be here.
Yeah, you got to be more involved with it mentally.
Right.
Now, for those people who are maybe the comic book aficionados, okay, I've stopped reading comics a long time ago, although I'm going to read your book. You've done involved with such titles with Lionforge as Quincredible, Trimax, Rampage Jackson, Street Soldier, and Airwolf. And so people who are kind of into the comic book vein and really familiar would know your work in those particular comics, correct?
Yeah, those books came out mainly digital.
Okay.
Where digital comics are available online, and those were like some of my first works with Lionforge, and it was just fun, especially working with Rampage Jackson, who's a very larger than life personality. Just his energy and his enthusiasm about being a comic book character, what he wanted, and he knew specifically. I want this. You make it work, Dave. Okay. And basically we built a friendship out of that. So that was a very fun experience, and Trimax was a really, really fun experience because that's completely homegrown St. Louis right there. Good friend Corey Longford was the creator. He said, I want you to write it. Wrote the scripts, and we tried to make it like a Saturday morning episodic cartoon show. So it really plays out that way, and I'm really that's one of the ones I'm proudest of.
That's cool. Ellie, I would never know that St. Louis had its own. Like, I wouldn't think about it, but why wouldn't we have our own comic book crew?
St. Louis has some of everything here, and I think that the key thing is, as we're able to gather groups together, a show like this actually helps bring people together and helps us to discover. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I have never heard of this. This is a great find.
Yeah.
And to be able to bring a group like yours to the forefront, and maybe it's great in the city. Maybe people hear it all the time in the city, and maybe just out here in the county, we're not on top of it. But it's good for us to be able to expand that exposure for you.
Well, St. Louis actually has a deep comic book history and just a deep history with art. Like I said, we started in the early 90s, the early 90s, and we were more like you would think we rolled like a rap group, but we were artists, airbrush artists, graffiti, comic book guys all together. And we were air assault, because, we assaulted the art world. And it was cool. We came up with our characters and everything. We had a whole persona about us, and we were the airbrush guys for a number of years. We knew how to screen print. You go into all these different realms, and there are all these different crews all over the city, and we're kind of one of the original OG gang, OG crew. So we want to make sure that the new artists coming up, that you guys understand that, hey, it's a lot of talent here, it's a lot of work out there, it's a lot of ways to display your art. So
that's super.
And we have a number of art galleries here in Webster. I don't know if you've had a chance to go by and visit. We've got McCann and Burr, who really does a tremendous job of helping black artists to have an area for exposure. I know they're working with DeGennaro Jones. They're working with
Roland Burroughs,
and doing some great things there. We've got the Green Door, on Gore Avenue. We've got Grafika Fine Arts, down in the Old Orchard area. I mean, we've got a lot, and I know I've missed some other art galleries, and they're going to probably hate me for it, but that's okay. Shameless plug.
Hey, we have a text, and the question is: have you developed a character who's your alter ego?
Ooh.
I haven't developed. There's a little bit of my alter ego in all of my characters. Now, side note, when I was first really getting into this in my formative high school years, I used to spend a lot of time turning my classmates and myself into superheroes. In those foregone years back in Hazelwood East. Don't know where all those old comic books went to, but we had a whole adventure series. So I've done it before, but I don't actually have a specific character that now. It's parts of my character, parts of my ego, or parts of me in pretty much all of my main characters. But I try to make them a little bit more original and separate from just my sensibilities, because I want to work with different type of personalities, and just kind of, I want to get into the head of different type of people. So
Gotcha.
You're gonna see with my characters, you're gonna see guys that are scholars, and there are guys that are kind of more hood, but they're all working towards the comic.
You're
cause.
even doing some history in here, aren't you?
Yeah.
And they've even made up some new words. I'm looking here on this one page. Here's a word. Now, you have to visualize that. There's a car that is like screeching down the street. Okay. and it says, choom. Now, who's ever heard of choom? Okay. And then there's another one. Okay. Now, the car looks like it has like crashed through something. And it says like, cow. Okay. Then the car looks like it's taking off flying. Okay, like it's crashed through a barrier and it's flying, and it says scratch. And then sploosh when it falls into the water. It's like great. I mean, these words are like fantastic.
Yeah, I'm old. Now, there's two schools of comic book heads now, as far as those are concerned. There's the school of guys that are like, look, that's a book. We don't need sound effects in comics. And I understand that. And it actually makes sense.
This is actually great, though. I mean, when you look at the pictures that go along with it, you really can feel it. Like when he crashes, he goes scratch, sploosh. I just love it.
And that's the school I'm in. I like.
That's
I
great.
just like doing.
Yeah.
It. I think it's part of the art form.
Absolutely.
It is. It even gets sentimental here, because after they've splooshed, okay, they're down in the water. Oh, doors are stuck. Nothing's working. Now what do I do? He reaches back. He goes, sorry, Mom. I thought I could do this. That is so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that. There are those types of moments.
There are. Oh, here's another word. Boosh.
Well, what it does is it makes the book come alive.
It does.
The story come alive.
It does. Here's shikow. I mean, these are just great words. Thump. Pow.
Well, and it reminds me of the old Batman and Robin series, as I mentioned.
Boom.
Well,
I just love these words.
I grew up watching that on reruns. So, yeah, that's a big part of it. But again, newer school people, they're like, I don't want to do all of that. Some guys do. I love it. I think it's a part of the art form.
It is.
And it belongs. And this is a total work of art. I've come to regard it now.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
every page, that's the thing, is every page here is a canvas. So it does two things. It tells a story. It's the canvas. You've got the emotions. I mean, that's the one thing that's interesting, is that you're able to capture emotions in your drawings.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's it's a very important thing as a storyteller. You got to be able to convey emotion with your characters.
Yes.
I see a lot of comic book artists now. All the characters kind of just have this stare,
the stare with the big eyes,
right? And it's the same. It's like, okay, he's angry.
Not really.
He's happy.
not really.
It's like, you got to add a little bit more to it. Let's have a little fun. It's okay to exaggerate. Sometimes I think
you have to exaggerate to actually get the effect that you want. Sometimes.
Exactly.
That's right. And your book does an exceptional job of that.
Well, folks, we want you to check out on Amazon Kwame Hightower and the Man with No Name by David Gorden, $12.99, a big fat hero graphic novel. And you can catch David tonight along with Lorenzo Lizano at the Urb Arts, and that's located at 2600 North 14th Street from 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. They're having their opening for their exhibit, which is called Super Black, the comic art of Lorenzo Lizano and David Gorden. David, thanks for coming in the studio today. We greatly appreciate and enjoyed our interview and time with you today.
Thank you guys for having me. I look forward for seeing everybody. If you can't make it out tonight, at least try to get down to Urb Arts during the month of July and just check us out and definitely let us know what you think.
Well,
Sounds
that's
great.
true. And they can check us out on Facebook, on our Facebook page. We got all the info there.
Hey, this is Arnold Stricker of In Tune. You're listening to KWRHLP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves. Stay tuned to In Tune. Welcome back to In Tune with Arnold Stricker and Ellie Wharton. Ellie, what a great interview with David Gorden. He's got some tremendous talent.
And it was so interesting, some of the things that he was bringing up about the difference between an animator and an illustrator, and that animators don't actually draw. They just animate, whereas illustrators actually draw. I thought that was very interesting.
Nice.
I always thought that animators did both of them. So he's really just a storehouse of knowledge.
I really appreciated his passion for really wanting to help mentor young and budding artists and those who are interested in the industry, because if you don't have that kind of background, if you don't have that guidance and that forethought of people who have already wandered through that territory, wandered through the weeds on that stuff, it becomes very, very difficult. And there's no sense in reinventing the wheel if you can hook up with somebody who is already ridden down that path.
That's right. And there are so many young people who exist with great talent, but they just don't know who to go to or where to go in order to get the exposure. That's why these kind of guys like David are so important to the community, because they've been there, they've done it, they've taken the hard knocks, and on top of it, they're willing to turn back and give back. I think that's the key part.
That's a real important part. They're willing to give back. And I did not mention at the front end of the show what our broadcast is about here, that In Tune is a 2-hour weekly broadcast which focuses on issues that impact and connect our community and the greater St. Louis area. We discuss and reflect on issues such as the arts, crime, education, employment, faith, finance, food, history, housing, humor, and justice.
And what's interesting in that the last 6 months, when you really take store of everything that you say there, we have covered all of those different categories.
We have, speaking about 6 months, we are celebrating our 26th show, which is 6 months, half a year of shows.
That's right.
And the radio station's been on the air for 6 months. And I had some questions for you as general manager of the station.
Uh-oh.
And
Bum, bum, bum.
I didn't send her a list of questions,
No, he
folks.
didn't. Oh,
so
that's bad.
So I'm going to, there's curveball, fastball questions, all these kinds of things. No, what stands out to you as highlights of getting the station off the air, off the ground, and running and moving along, and now that we're 6 months down the road, what are some things that have stood out to you as general manager?
I would say that when I look at our tremendous staff, that is what stands out to me first and foremost. These are people that really have a true love for community radio. They're not being paid anywhere close to what people who are working on commercial radio stations. But I'm going to tell you, these folks come in and they give it their all. They will come in and work nights. They will work weekends. They will work whenever they're asked to work. There's no complaints. And it's amazing how the group has just kind of fallen in place. I take Chris, for example. When we first started, Chris had just moved here from someplace in New York and came right on board. Isn't that right, Chris? Where'd you come from?
Well, mid-Hudson Valley, New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of from that whole region.
Right. And so he came and boom, just kind of fell into place here, and it was like, cool. I mean, he had just the exact kind of skills that we needed for what we were doing. Then there's Davo, who arrived like days after we started the station from Bogota, Colombia. Didn't know anybody but us, But in a short period of time, he's been able to have a great place to stay. He's got a car going for himself. He's really telling us a lot and teaching us about FIFA and about soccer. Okay. And we've met his parents and his mom and dad, his sister, his niece has been here, his cousin rather, and then we're going to be going down to see him graduate. That is amazing. And so Davo, he's there at the microphone chomping at the bit to say something too. Davo, what has been your experience here?
Can you repeat, please, the question?
What has been your experience here in the 6 months that you've been here with us? What do you think about this area in the United States? And
well, I love the United States. So for example, being here on the 4th of July, having the experience coverage the radio station, it was really great watching the parade. The fireworks was really nice. So, well, the first thing is I really enjoy being here in this country, and the second, it's being part of watching how the station has been growing up in these 6 months. Because from the production part, from being here through the window to this side, has been really fun watching how each show has improving so much. So that it's a really good thing to see how all these people that when they arrived they didn't know too much how to do a radio show or kind of a little bit of that stuff, and now they have all this knowledge how to talk, how to bring their music. It's been fun.
It's true. And then, we just look at, of course, we can't leave out Sean, because Sean worked on this for years before there was ever any money involved for him, and just bringing tremendous expertise of pulling it all together, getting our sports program going. I'm so indebted to him for what he has done there. And then we've got our college guys who came to us, Jacob Claspel, Kevin Smith, Jace Archdeacon. I mean, those guys came directly from Webster University and started working. Malik Carter, a student at Webster University. We've got Michelle Azim back here, who, and she's shaking her head like, no, don't put me on the air. But Michelle just got accepted to Webster University.
Congratulations.
So, when I look at that is just so tremendous to realize that we were able to provide these type of opportunities for people.
Well, if people have the vision for something to happen like that, like I think about how many high school football games get broadcast on the air. In outstate Missouri, in small towns, it's a big thing.
It's huge here too, I'll tell you. People listen. We know that they're listening to the games, especially the football, the soccer, the basketball, the lacrosse.
But I'm talking about the other high schools in the St. Louis area. They don't have what we have.
That's right.
And that's a really interesting thing that people need to give consideration to.
And the fact that we've been able to tie in Narings as well as Webster University sports. So we didn't just do Webster Grove's high school sports.
Right.
We tied in the other schools as well
that are in this community.
Right. And being able to bring in Eden Seminary with Taft Harris doing his show on Fridays, having Webster University. They've got their show on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 12 noon. The resources that we've been able to pull on in the last 6 months has just been absolutely tremendous.
Well, and I see teamwork in action. I see people who are listening to other people, who take advice, who take instruction, and who implement it and do it and get it done. And everybody, it's like different cogs of a system. People are doing their part to make the whole radio station come off and sound really extremely professional.
And the people that are in the background too. I can't leave out Mary Taylor. Mary Taylor comes in twice a week as a volunteer and just does a lot of little administrative things that would kind of go probably undone or not done in a timely manner. But she comes in and just jumps right in and does exactly what she's supposed to do. So I'm just always impressed with the group of people who really love doing what they do. And we can't leave out Win Miller, because Win, he has been here for years behind the scenes with us. He's even come in and done a couple of recordings. Didn't quite work out so well for us, but that was okay. He came in and he tried. He did a good job for us. But he would go and do the sports shows on Friday nights. Dava Williamson and her children, who would ride all over the place just being there to do sports. All of the sports guys, the Jim Grillos and the Taryn Sutherlands and all of those folks, and congratulations, Taryn, for getting ready to go somewhere to go play whatever you play. But he's big. Let's put it that way. We'll be like, yeah, I remember Taryn win, Seeing all of that just really lets me know that we're on the right path.
So what's the next? We just talked about the last 6 months. What in your mind? What do you see in the coming 6 months?
Continued great programming. As Davo said, the thing I think we have all seen the most is the overall growth of our producers, those who put on their shows week after week. When they first came, they were doing it really like, okay, I really think I want to do this. And to see the growth in those producers week after week, to see the level of professionals who they bring into this studio week after week, to share knowledge with our 63119 community and our surrounding communities. It takes nothing more than looking at our wall of fame here. When you realize that like a little over a year ago, there was only one name on there. That was Rebecca Now. She was the first one, and she made this big signature. And she was like, look how big my signature is. And now when you look at the wall, her signature is pretty much covered up by all the hundreds of other signatures, because those are people that have come on the air here. That's how you get on the wall of fame. So we know we have touched a lot of lives, and we have allowed a lot of information and knowledge to be shared.
And plus, we're running out of wall space.
No, they're now on a different wall, and people were telling me maybe I needed to build a wall outside or something. I don't know, but it's really it's just blooming, and people are really catching on to the value of community radio.
Well, and I hope people will. When they get into their car, have their radio tuned to 92.9 FM. When they're in their house and they turn the radio on to 92.9 FM, because there's a variety of times when it's like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that show was on the air.
That's right. And I have to also mention, too, that by this being community radio, it is supported by listeners as well as by the producers. We don't accept any funds. We don't take in the funds from the Webster Rock Hill Ministries as a way to support us. The goal is that we want to be self-sufficient. So we always need donations, and that assists us to be able to provide this programming, along with, the small amount that the producers, do pay us to be on the air. But it's very small what they pay us.
So when people can donate, or they also through Give STL was another.
That was a great day for us, Give STL Day. People can always go up on our website to the donate button and donate that way. They can go to our Facebook page. We've got a donate button on that. But we can always, and believe it or not, something as small as $10. I have one lovely lady who for the last couple of years has given us through PayPal a $10 recurring payment. Well, you know what? That may not sound like much month to month, but in the course of a year, she's given us $120. And she's done that several years in a row now. And it doesn't hurt her. It comes out automatically, And again, it's another great way for people to just support the station. They can go right up on our website and set up a recurring payment of $10, $5, whatever, and they won't miss it.
Now, I know you've said in the past that we're the little radio station that could.
Oh, that was Kenny Murdoch that started that.
Kenny started that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Captain Resistance.
So now we're the little radio station that is.
That is. Or if we wanted to speak Ebonics, that am. But we're radio, so we don't speak Ebonics, do we?
We speak frequency.
Yeah, that's right. We speak frequency, and we speak a lot.
And I think one of the things I really enjoy about listening to the station is the variety of programming. There's things about health. There's things about wellness. There's things about aspects going on in the community.
Art.
The sports, the art.
Education.
Right, music kinds of shows, just the wide gamut. Somebody, when we were up at the parade on Wednesday, they said, well, what kind of music do you play? I said, Well, we do a lot of different kinds of music, and we're pretty much an eclectic station.
Very
we do
much so.
A lot of different kinds of things, and it's just not music.
I was listening the other day in the evening, and there was Motown playing, and then the next night I was listening, and it was like big band swing.
Let me chime in here because I'm kind of
talk about your show,
a part
Chris.
of that. Well, I will in a minute, but I want to just pick up on what Ellie was saying about the music hours that we're doing. And I think we've kind of like, we are honing sort of almost a unique, that I know of. Maybe Ellie can comment on this, but I don't think this is any other radio station is really doing quite what we're doing. We are homing in on like a very narrow genre of music, like that those classic mid-60s Motown hits. Okay,
Man, had me jamming like crazy. I almost ran out of gas the other night because I was riding around town listening to that show, and I was not going to stop until it stopped.
Right. And where else, though, can you hear just that narrow of a genre for an hour? All right. And so we have several of those. We have new wave, 80s new wave. And we're working on a whole bunch of different, like these genre music hours, genre and decade music hours. And as far as I know, there's nothing else like that on the radio. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, just picking up on the whole community radio theme and college radio. Like, you just don't know what you're going to hear when you turn on the radio to our station. You know, that's kind of baked in the cake of who we are. So, hey, let's run with it, right?
Right.
And then, of course, Chris, you just have such a dynamic year-end countdown show. You know, I'm always listening to that because I text you when I'm listening.
You're always very complimentary about it, and I mean that's a lot of work. That's kind of the labor of love. Just you know, and it's funny the way that started out was just a quick way to fill an hour.
That's right. And now look.
So people know though. That's an hour show. How long does it take you to prep and get all that stuff ready to go?
Probably at least 15 hours a week. I mean,
so
just the research that goes into that is just ridiculous because, I mean, if you just ever try to Google just a song or an artist, you know, see how many results you get. And there's just so much information about all these songs that were, you know, on the charts and top hits in their day that it becomes a process. You have to just narrow that down and like what's really important to say about this and how does it tie into the era and all that.
And you figure it out because it sounds so fluid.
It does.
And it sounds all linked together. And it's interesting to know that, you know, when you're listening, it's like, oh, this person's going to have the number one hit, but they were this one on 4 and 5 on this album. And that intricacy is stuff that, you know, you don't look at unless you look at the back of, I'm going to date myself, to look at the back of a record jacket. And you can't, who's going to look at the inside of a CD cover? You don't get that information now on a download.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. I kind of look at the information I'm presenting as sort of liner notes for a particular year in music.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And then let's not forget, we got Jeff Tedford with his 2-hour show.
Moments Notice.
Oh,
Great
I
show.
tell you, and if people could see the amount of resources that Jeff comes in the door with, it is amazing. He is a walking record store, CD store. But again, it's something that he has collected ever since he was a young boy, and he's able to bring his expertise. Chris Mullen with Studio 111. Oh my gosh, has she brought some great artists in here, and just, you know, and then the jazz that she presents to us, just phenomenal. You know, Davo even stepped up to the plate, and he does like classic rock.
Forever rock.
Forever rock.
You know, let's not forget Johnny Lightning, Forever 80s.
Ever 80s.
You know, I mean, so we just have this vast variety of music, and then these great producers that come on and give us this health messages and living better, you know, how to just have a better life, all that you do, because I know you spend hours doing the research for this show.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And you've taught me a lot of things. You bring in people that I would never have had a chance to meet.
Well, and the beauty of the station is we can communicate with people across the country via the phone lines, have interviews with them. Even internationally, we've done that. The in-studio interviews are great.
Yes, they are.
Because you can really, you're sitting right across the table from them and see some visual interaction. And off air, we discuss things that even come back around when we get back on the air. So it's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it tremendously.
And you've just been a tremendous asset to this station. Another thing that you've done a great job of helping us with has been with our political coverage. When every year we have had a setup, and I think there was a year that you were one of the candidates that was being interviewed, but we were able to interview our local candidates, ask them questions that have been presented to us by members of the community so that we can really hear what people are really thinking and how they address themselves. And then we have it there archived for people to be able to go back and listen to it. And I've had tremendous response from people who thank me so much for that, because they say, I couldn't make it to the voters forum, or I didn't have time to listen, but I can sit in the comfort of my home and listen to every candidate and make a good decision.
That's a great point, because I've heard other people say similar comments, and then they've added, I appreciate, even from the candidates, I appreciate a 20 to 30 minute kind of conversation with them, rather than at those forums where it's maybe like 3 minutes and you don't really get a lot of in-depth answers. Here we ask some follow-up questions, we kind of probe a little bit, we have some standard questions that everybody gets asked, but it's a much more informative time, I think, for people who are listening, because it's a longer time.
Yes, and the thing is that we listen to not just the mayor and people that are running for city council, but we had the school board, which is very, very important. It's open to the Rock Hill folks. They didn't have anybody running against anybody this term, and neither did they in Shrewsbury. But if they did, we would have brought on those people. We've brought on the county councilman, Pat Dolan. I didn't even know we had a county councilman.
He came on. We had Bob McCullough on.
Bob McCullough on.
We had Wesley Bell.
That's right.
Who those elections are coming up here in less than a month, or about a month's time.
So we have been able to reach, and we've reached across the country. We've had professors from Washington, D.C. on the air, people all the way from California on the air. Imagine that, people from those separate ends of the country being on one little radio station that could, right here in 63119.
Well, I wanted to mention, too, I've posted our shows on SoundCloud and also on iTunes. So if you go to SoundCloud or iTunes and you put in the search engine Intune, 2 separate words there, and KWRH, you'll get all those shows, and you can listen to past shows that we've had. But what's also been interesting about that on the SoundCloud, I get a printout or a readout about the stats about where the shows are being listened to from and which countries. We have over a dozen countries that have listened to the show. We have over, I think it's like 118 cities in the United States that have listened to our shows. So it's very fascinating, the outreach of radio. And just beyond the 63119 in the greater St. Louis area, where we're only 100 watts, we're an LP, low power station. But because of the internet, we're able to go further and go all the way around the world.
The world, that's right. And we can't forget our great Saturday programming, where we have lay people, people who are from different churches that are lay pastors that come out and do 4-hour programs just providing spiritual understanding and knowledge. We're not trying to proselytize, but just provide people with the necessary words of life that help them through. And the same thing on Sunday mornings, being able to have programs related to dating and marriage and relationships and can't forget our children's programming from 3 to 4, Monday through Saturday.
Right, where books are read.
Yes, books are read. And we were able to go up to the Freedom School and meet with the children that are participating in Freedom School this summer. They're reading, and then we're turning around and playing it back on the air. Being able to tie in things like we just did with the library and with Deaf Inc. I mean, amazing, the collaborations that are coming out of this effort here.
Well, I see a lot of unifying efforts within the community about tying businesses and tying community groups together through the radio station and linking them up together.
And that's the way it should be. When you're in a smaller community like this, it allows you the comfort of being able to have a station, have a medium that focuses on your issues. When we turn on the big stations, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 2, and they're giving the news, very little of that news really relates to us. It's almost just like we're just spectators, But here, we're able to provide information that directly impacts this community. Case in point, this morning's Morning Crew, they had a robust conversation about the number of political entities in the parade. They were able to talk about it, and people were able to immediately text the station and give their thoughts on it. So,
interesting comment, because on another a couple other radio and television stations, they had some information about that. And that may be something we need to have a brief conversation about after the break.
That'll be great. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just pleased. I'm so thrilled with everything that I have seen happen in this last 6 months.
Well, we appreciate your efforts about putting everything together. And it's a tremendous labor of love, and it's great to see the fruition of your efforts with that, Ellie. This is Arnold Stricker of In Tune. You're listening to KWRHLP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri. You know, Ellie, sometimes I think we need a camera in here.
Boy, if we did, people would be rolling on the floor if they could see our...
Because we were rolling on the floor.
Yeah. And that was just for a bottle of water. That's okay, folks. We really do have lots of water here, so don't all of a sudden flood us with water. Think those poor people have no water.
No, when we went to break, Ellie said, you know, Arnold, you sped up your...
You did.
You sped up your vocals when the music got faster.
You did. We were saying that it was good that we didn't have an auctioneer's sound check there, because your lips would have flown right off your face.
I wanted to make sure we didn't get cut off.
Yeah, because Chris, man, I tell you, he is a tyrant. He does work by the second.
He keeps it on task.
And you know, I just want to point out that the previous promo that you just heard regarding seminary plots, this again is another example of how being out in the community actually brought us this show. We didn't know Taft, but he was at the Fun Fest 63119 event that we did I think it was in June, with the Chamber of Commerce. And he was very interested in what we were doing, and he interacted with Michelle and her sister. And the very next week, he was calling us up and saying, I'd like to have a show. Okay, great. He comes in. The very next Friday, he's on the air.
Wow.
I mean, like within 2 weeks, a guy who knew nothing about us, didn't know who we were, but heard about what we were doing and came right on. And so his show is on Fridays from 3 to 5.
There you are.
You know,
this afternoon.
The guy, Kenny Murdoch, Captain Resistance. He was a guy who was doing a show in the city and didn't like some of the politics of that particular radio station. He heard about us. I don't know how he heard about us, because he's in the city somewhere, and contacted me and said, hey, I'd like to move my show from that radio station to your radio station. And he waited for a whole year to get his show on the air with us. So when I look at those kinds of testimonies from people, you know, when I listen to Amanda LaPlante talk about how she's able to help people, and she knows that the show is helping people, or Dr. Nick Barnes with Maximize Living, or the Factor Brothers with their physical therapy, you know, or Mark Patrick with Words of Change. I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on. So many wonderful producers who have found their voice right here on this station. I get choked up just thinking about it, especially going backwards and realizing how this came from an idea,
right.
A thought. When I would tell people about it, they would kind of look at me and go, yeah, that's nice. A radio station. That's really nice.
Yeah, wait till that seed starts sprouting.
Yeah. And then to now look at the wall, to go back on our Facebook page and look at the number of people who came out to our ribbon cutting ceremony, not just once, but twice in the same day.
Right.
The community was ready for something like this.
And we appreciate the community supporting the radio station and encouraging all of us by listening and by spreading the word that we exist, 92.9 FM on your dial. And if you have trouble hearing the signal sometime in your house, maybe turn your radio a little bit.
Just move it around a little bit. Or sometimes, even in my own house, it's just a matter sometimes of me moving from one space to another.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the radio station comes in clearly. Just thinking about like Jim Shearburn, Uncle Pick, you know, how he has been so supportive and listens all the time. And I know he listens because he comes and tells me about specific things that we've talked about in this show. One day I saw John Simpson, superintendent of schools, and he came up and started commenting about something that we had talked about, you know, and it's just like, hey, John's listening to the show in his office, you know. I mean, like, things like that are just so cool.
It is. And we appreciate the community very much. It's a labor of love for people here. And it's a service that we enjoy giving.
Absolutely. And even when Davo's mom and sister and cousin came, and they cut promos for the station. And last night I heard his mom doing her promo in Spanish. Man, I tell you, we need to get that woman on the air. She just has the best voice. It was beautiful, to just realize that we're reaching out and people can speak in their foreign language. They can greet us and feel comfortable in knowing that we will accept them and their greeting.
Well, we appreciate your vision of this, Ellie, and your work, because it was a ton of work. And when people don't believe, they give you, yeah, that's fine, go for it. And you continued down the road. You were very steadfast in your focus and your vision of what you wanted the station to be.
Well, I do have to give I guess I can't give him a shout out, but I have to thank my late husband for this, because during the time, and people who have heard my story before, they know that when we came back to the United States, we had been in Panama for 5 years as missionaries, and my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and we came home immediately for him to be treated. And that's when we found out about the opportunity for the radio station. And we were going into chemo every other week and traveling with him for his treatments. And at one point I was saying, like, well, honey, I don't know if I can do this, because I need to focus on you. And there was not a moment that he was willing to let me stop doing that. He says, no, this is the legacy that you will be leaving Webster Groves, your community. Go for it. And really, up until just a few weeks before his passing, he was constantly involved with the radio station and with all of the things that we were doing, and with coming to meetings and handling whatever needed to be handled. So that's why when you walk into the studio, the first photo that you'll see as you walk in the door is Keith.
Right.
Welcoming everyone into this radio station.
And rightfully so. Matter of fact, speaking about that segues into what I can say right now. I was at a wake for a colleague yesterday who passed away from pancreatic cancer. And I'll read this. It says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on their tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash?
That's always a beautiful statement. I love hearing it, because it is true. Is that dash, actually, I feel that there should not be a space. You know how they put the birth date and then there's a little space for the dash and then a space, and your dash should be so full that it extends over, into both dates. Because when you think about it, when you come into this world, you bring with you a level of love that your parents, haven't experienced. No matter how many children they may have, your existence brings a different level of love. Hopefully a heightened level of love. And so that love should extend throughout your life, so that at the end, when people are crying, they're crying because they're just so sad that your experiences will no longer be there personally, but they can be joyful because they can look at the leftover results and say, you know what? When Ellie goes, there was that radio station down there. When Arnold goes, there was something that Arnold did. I know what Arnold did. Arnold eliminated the achievement gap in education in the 63119.
That would be a wonderful thing.
Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to have people say about you?
You know, I worked in a cemetery one summer. And you know why they have fences around cemeteries?
We could go. This is not
People
one of
are
your
just
joke
dying
things.
to get
I know.
into.
I was going to say, is this one of your jokes?
No, I did work at a cemetery one time.
Okay,
in the summer at Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I've trimmed around such notable headstones as President Benjamin Harrison, the founder of Indianapolis. Actually, the other person who was buried there, whose tombstone was stolen while we were working there, was John Dillinger.
Now that's appropriate. John Dillinger's headstone got stolen.
What's interesting is reading the headstones with verses that are on it, either biblical verses or other kinds of verses or prose or poetry, and how from years ago, I'm talking about the turn of the 19th to the 20th century and the early 20th century, how these massive monuments had all of this script on it and verbiage. And you would stand there, and we were trimming around headstones. This was before weed eaters, okay? So we had a gas-powered generator that we plugged an electrical cord in, a really thick electrical cord, and we had these weed eaters that actually had blades on them that were electrically powered from a generator. It was pre the weed eaters that we know today. And we would be going along, and you could read the headstones as you were trimming around them. And it was very interesting how some were there was nothing there, and then there was some that you could see an outpouring of love and care and concern from a loved one or something to be remembered. And when we were talking about this dash, I was thinking it would be interesting to have a tombstone where the birth date was on the far left-hand corner as you're looking at it, and the death date on the far right-hand corner, and this dash that went all the way across the tombstone.
That would be very interesting.
It would give pause to reflect and like, what? And then it would be like, oh, that was the important part of life.
That's right.
That's who we are, not necessarily the birth or the death. It's what happens in between.
Absolutely.
And that dash now is normally this little bitty thing, but it really should extend the whole tombstone.
It really should. It should be, it should actually wrap around.
Yes. Yes.
Just wrap around the tombstone. But it has been a labor of love. I saw the value of low power radio when I lived in Belize and worked for a station in Belize. And I saw how a family there, the entire family, from the grandma all the way down to the children, dedicated their life, even a space in their home to put their studio. Their whole life was this radio station, and still is. And it has grown. The faith of the people, and these are poor people, the faith of the people down there, where they started off with it being a small low power station in a town, in a little village, smaller than Webster Groves. But other people, they saw the value of what they were doing. The next thing you know, they had a repeater station on the top of a mountain that was about a 3-hour drive away from the community where I lived in. And there were men who would stay up there on top of this mountain by themselves, and talk about a dark, lonely place. But they would be there to make sure that the transmitter always was on. It was running. And they were toting diesel fuel back and forth to feed the generator to keep the station going. And then as other people saw what was going on, foreigners became more interested in it, and they started donating money for other repeater stations. Today, that station that started off in a community smaller than Webster Groves can now be heard in all of Belize, in the Yucatan, in Guatemala, in Honduras. And they're on the internet, so they can be heard all over the world now. And that family they were the ones that inspired me to do that and come here and build a station, because I saw the value of it down there.
Now, do they know what?
Oh, yes, they absolutely do know. We keep in touch, and, they were very saddened when Keith passed, because he was very much a part of, we all went to church together and, spent a lot of fellowshipping time together. So they were very grateful to know that their ministry impacted, a gringo who then came back and wanted to replicate the exact same type of thing.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, they call their station Faith FM, Radio Fe. That's right. And they, again, bring people in from all over. Once a year in January, they have like a fundraising event. But it's a big event where they bring a lot of guest artists in. And there are people that travel from all the way across the country there to come and spend the weekend. And these are people that may have to get on like 3 or 4 different buses to get from where they live, maybe
Wow,
up in the
yeah.
Yucatan to this, because they're coming from the Yucatan and we're almost in Guatemala. So they've had to come across borders, go through the whole border thing, catch buses to get all the way across there just to be there and just to support. That's what showed me then that there was tremendous opportunities with low power radio.
Well, and it also tells me, because as Americans, we are a little lazy. Because if you really wanted to do something in a community like that, what you're talking about, you have to put a lot of forethought, because you're going to spend a lot of time on the road. You may have to walk. You may have to ride in a vehicle that's not comfortable and over roads that possibly are just trails.
Oh my gosh, I can tell you, when we would take that diesel fuel up to the mountain, it would take us hours, and don't let it have rained. Okay, then it was like double the number of hours. I mean, maybe 6 hours just to get up to this mountain one way. And then we would have to get at the bottom of the mountain, and then they would gun the engine of the truck and kind of run up the hill a little ways and put the brake on. Then we'd have to run up and put big stones behind the tires so that they could kind of rev up again and go up a little bit further. And imagine they've got all of these barrels of diesel fuel in the back.
Gee.
Okay, you talk about a labor of love. And this man did this probably 3 times a week. I mean, it was amazing. 3 times a week. He would do this, and he'd have his young son. His son was probably about 9 or 10 at the time. His son never would even think about letting his dad go up there by himself. He was always there. But I was amazed at the men that would stay up there on top of this mountain, and it would get cold up there too at night. But just to make sure that the generator continued to run.
Things that are important to people, they will find a way to make sure that they happen.
Yes. And then eventually, I think it was some Americans were so impressed, they then gave them, I think it was like $10,000 to build a windmill. And so they built the windmill up there.
To power?
Yes, to power. And so that eliminated a lot of their need for the diesel fuel, which was tremendous. But again, other foreigners coming in and seeing what these people were doing and saying, I want to contribute to that. And they contributed large amounts of money to help them.
Oh, to have that happen, yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So we're not asking for $10,000 donations, although it would be nice. But, it just shows you that a small amount of money when it comes to community radio can go a long, long way.
And having conversations about things that happen in the community, like the parade, like we talked about this morning, that was on the morning show, and got a lot of good input from the community via the text. And no matter where people land on that, be something to chew on, to think about, to know what's the best thing for the community, and what's the best thing as far as making sure that we enjoy the spirit of the day.
Right. And just the fact that they have a voice that is dedicated to this community, I think is the key thing. Other communities may have other concerns, but guess what? We were able to air the concerns of 63119, and we will be able to do that continuously as long as we're on the air. That is our mission.
That's correct. Well, a couple things I wanted to highlight, either today or coming up through this week, that folks may want to be cognizant of. Today, this day in history, Althea Gibson was the first African-American woman to win a Wimbledon title.
And a lot of people may not be aware that she was actually the first African-American woman to win. And now, was it that she was the first woman?
1957, she claimed the women's singles tennis title at Wimbledon, became the first African-American to win a championship. So the first African-American, probably the first African-American woman.
Yes.
Also.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Because I was just thinking back, because I can remember when that occurred, actually. And again, a name just swept underneath the rug. Because again, women's tennis was not at the forefront,
Right.
like men's tennis was. I mean, everybody, would know Arthur Ashe, who again, Arthur Ashe is from St. Louis.
St. Louis, correct.
And my dad used to play tennis with Arthur Ashe down at the tennis courts in the city, in the park. And I tell you, when I would see Arthur Ashe play, I knew that young man was destined for greatness. And so at the time, they were just starting to recruit African Americans for tennis, and so they recruited my dad and Arthur Ashe. Well, my dad had a young family. He was already working at Wash U. Tennis wasn't the big money sport, and he was like, no, I just can't go gallivanting all over the country playing tennis when I've got a family and a job. Well, Arthur Ashe was coming right out of high school, and he was like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
That's exactly right. Also, the first Major League Baseball All-Star game was held today in 1933. And something that relates to the Constitution, and coming up on July 11th was the date that Aaron Burr slayed Alexander Hamilton.
Wow.
In the famous duel.
And the famous duel. That's amazing.
So some lighthearted moments here now, Ellie.
Oh, we're going to go to our humor?
Oh, I forgot one, that the Liberty Bell on July 8th told the announcement of the Declaration of Independence. So that's another very important time around this time.
Well, we've got a lot of important things happening. Wasn't it that, I'm putting you on the spot here now, wasn't it that there were two congressional rivals that died on July 4th?
Yes.
And they died just hours from each other?
John Adams and Thomas Jefferson.
That's right. Adams and Jefferson.
They both passed away on July the 4th.
Just hours apart, right?
Hours apart, that's correct. I believe it was 1816, but don't quote me on that.
Uh-oh, there's somebody out there that's going to,
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah,
right
because
here.
that way you can avoid having people, tell us that we're putting out false information. No fake news here, folks.
No, we want to do the real thing. 1826. I was off 10 years. July 4th, 1826.
Well, just, 10 years in their life was...
A long time.
That's right.
I was going to guess 1823. So, if this was the Price is Right, I would be up on the stage right now.
That's
playing
right.
the game.
You'd be door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3.
And then you'd be jumping around, falling down, and grabbing on the host, and everybody goes tumbling. Did you see that one time when this woman did that?
I did not.
It was so funny. I didn't see it live. I saw it on, I guess on YouTube or something like that. But she was so excited that she grabbed the host, and was like jumping around, and both
Knocked him down.
both of them fell down. And I think she fell on top of him. It was very funny.
All right, folks, here's a couple funnies for you. These are notes that were written by kids at school. Dear Mom, thank you so much for being my mom. If I had a different mom, I would punch her in the face and go find you.
Punch her in the face.
Dear Mrs. McMahon, you're a good teacher, but not my most favorite.
Oh, my goodness.
Here's another one. Sorry because of nothing.
You know what? That's a bumper sticker.
Dear Tooth Fairy, I lost my tooth on the 23rd of October. Now it is November 12th. I lost my tooth in pizza. I lost both today. You owe me $1. Not to be hard, but I need money.
I know that was a boy that said that.
And we'll
that.
stop this one. Dear God, thank you for the baby brother, but what I prayed for was a puppy. Gee. Out of the mouths of kids.
I know, misdirected prayer answer. That's okay. The baby brother will probably be a lot better in the long run.
That's correct. That's correct. Be a. You don't have to. Well, yeah, no, I won't go there. We'll appreciate it a lot longer.
And I had my neighbor. He has a dog he had a dog that every morning used to come underneath my bedroom window and bark at me to kind of wake me up. And I was talking to him yesterday, and that poor dog passed away. And so I told him he needed to get a new dog.
So you could get up. You were late to several meetings.
That's right. What the
Where's
heck?
my alarm clock?
That's right. Exactly.
Oh, mercy. Well, we appreciate our listeners tuning into In Tune today. It's been wonderful talking to David Gorden, and please make sure that you check that show out at Urb Arts. Don't forget, when the Martians invade, there's only one race, the human race, and every one of us have different characteristics and is uniquely valuable. This is KWRH LP 92.9 FM. For In Tune, studio manager Chris Verdesi, co-host Ellie Wharton, I'm Arnold Stricker. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, walk worthy and let your light shine.